Productions, the Cultural Preservation Station. Tune in. Tune in. Hey yo. Black education, cultural preservation, Taylor BTV, because elevation. Tune into the station, we rockin' the whole nation. That's right, we rockin' the whole nation, prepping new generation for mental activation. Taylor BTV's the new sensation. Stop the hesitation and learn something new. My girl Taylor B's here to show and prove. Terrorist shit.
All right. Peace and love, family. It's your girl, Teller B. This is BTV Live. I am so happy to be with you tonight. Thank you guys for coming back with us for another BTV Live Tuesday nights for history with Moreh Yeshia. Tonight, we're going to be doing a little something different, not actually talking about specific history. We're going to be really digging into the election, and Moreh Yeshia is going to be giving his unadulterated, unapologetic opinion about the candidates, giving you some background information, and just his point of view. So I'm super excited to get that started. Before I do that, I want to make sure you guys are liking the video, subscribe to our YouTube if you're not already subscribed. We have a lot in store for you coming up. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification, like the video, share the video. We're about to get into these politics, but before we do, I just want to get some stuff out of the way. The theme music for BTV is by artist Don Pacino of Napalm Records. Make sure you guys go check out his new album, Survival Bible, which is out now at donpacinobandcamp.com. I'm going to go ahead and put his link to his Bandcamp in the comments. And you guys can make sure you go hit him up and check out all of his good music that he has up there for you. So without further ado, I'm going to get Moreh Yeshia up on the screen. Let's get the brother up on the screen and welcome him to Tuesday Night Lives. All right, here we go. Peace, Moreh. How are you tonight?
Yes, peace. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing? You ready to get into this election talk?
Yes. All in all, I'm well. I'm ready. With the slides that I presented. Yes.
All right. So we're going to get this started. I'm going to get ready to get the slides up on the screen for us. And then we'll get started because we know we have limited time and we really want to thank you guys for tuning in live with us. We do have an option. We did have the call-in option while Moreh Yeshia is getting into the presentation. I'll try to get the back line ready for you guys. If you guys want to call in with your opinions, you're welcome to do that. I'm not going to make any promises about getting that up and running because that is type of a technical thing, but I think I should be able to get it together for us. And then I'll put the number up on the screen where you guys can contact us. And you can join the show live. I love interactive shows. So hopefully we can get you guys interactive. Also, if you're in the comments, please interact with us. Give your comments, give your opinion. You might not like some things that you're going to hear, and some things you might hear that you didn't know. So we welcome all feedback. We welcome constructive criticism, and we welcome, any type of comments that you guys want to give. So let me go ahead and get the screen ready. Give me 1 second. Moreh, how was your week? We're here every Tuesday night, so I always want to see how your week went and how are things going for you. So why don't you go ahead and talk about that and how your week is going and some things, anything you have coming up, or if you want to talk about the books while I pull the slides up.
Okay, giving honor to the creator of heaven and earth. Everything for the most part has been pretty well, not bad. Definitely 1, 2. I'm going to on my end mute or lower the computer thing. If I can still be heard, let me know. But when I'm talking, I notice if my volume is up on the computer I'm using, I hear a little echo. So that's what that is with that. But getting back into the point. The week all in all has been well. I've been watching and reading a lot of things and observing a lot of things. And I'm not saying I know everything, but I definitely would like to sit there and bring this out to the people. Regarding the election and everything of that sort. Let me first clear the air, if I may, regarding, say, the house of Israel or the Israelites in this kind of matter. Many Israelites understandably go into Deuteronomy 17 in the Bible, where it speaks upon don't set one over you that is not of your brother as a king. And therefore, many, due to that understanding, which is a commandment, they do not sit there and vote. Now, this right here is not to sit there and say that anybody or anyone should vote, but we definitely want to understand this. The prophet Isaiah spoke about Cyrus releasing the prisoners. Cyrus was not an Israelite. The scriptures talks about essentially how the during the time of the Medes and the Persians, it was a bit calmer for the Israelites than say it was before with Babylon and Assyria, and after Media Persia with Greece and Rome. So historically, if a people is ruling over another people, there was some that were to a certain extent better. Not that you quote choose the lesser of two evils, but just want to sit there and bring this out, say to the people in that particular case. What I'm going to present is not going to be respected or liked by everybody, but is with reason that we present these 16, 17 slides for edification purposes. A brother / black man speaks on the election matter. Now, it may come as a surprise to many that a black male, and on top of that, an Israelite, is speaking on the election. The reason is because we should be knowledgeable of the things that are around us. A slave is ignorant. He eats, he labors, he sleeps, and is happy. A statement from the movie Roots. Now, I didn't see the second version of Roots, the movie that came out myself, but I did sit there, brothers and sisters, and seen the first one. And in it, that's one of the things that stated when it was like, oh, well, if they the slaves. If they can be taught to read, then that means they have the ability to learn. And so therefore, how can it be a crime to teach them to read? And the response was the slave is ignorant. He eats, he sleeps, he labors, and he's happy. And so many of our people are doing the same thing in many cases. Scripturally, and this is no disrespect intended to any brother or sister, because nobody is perfect. Many of us have become like Jonah in the scriptures, that when everything is going haywire and crazy and so forth, we done going down to the bottom of a matter and going fast to sleep, as opposed to sitting up there and seeing what is going on and where do we fit in the situation going on. Jonah knew when he became aware of the situation where he fit in at. So we need to sit there, understand, brothers and sisters, where do we fit in in this particular case? The scriptures speak about in the scriptures of Joseph becoming a viceroy in the land of Egypt. We read about Moses being respected and a great man in the land of Egypt. We sit there, brothers and sisters, see Daniel in the scriptures was a great man in Babylon. We see that during the time of the Medo-Persian Empire or the Achaemenid Empire, that Nehemiah was a governor. So within our scriptures, we begin to sit there and see the prestige and the leadership qualities that some of our people had. We know good and well, and we've been saying for some time, that our Creator, the Most High, brings kings up and down, turns wise men backward and maketh their knowledge foolish. And so if we can say no and understand that, then it should not be perhaps a problem with speaking upon this kind of subject with what we want to state. Thank you for that. Next slide, thanks. Now, I want to say this. Good evening. I am your brother and friend, Yeshia Israel. I would state that if one was to be a better candidate for the presidency, I would say Kamala. This is why I state such. What I disagree with her is something that is not deemed mandatory. I do not believe personally in abortion. I do think that it helps anyone. I do not think, that it helps anyone. I meant to say that, my manners. I believe more so in marriage. Many of us have premarital sex, and in the era of the 90s, it was promoted in high schools that condoms for safe sex should be used. I personally remember in high school where they would actually sit there and give condoms out. Now, let's continue. Pamphlets were given out also, speaking of 100 things to do besides sex, were pushed. What we see now is not even a matter of safe sex promotion, and certainly not marriage promoted, but rather a case of sex and aborts. With that, I disagree with. when you begin to sit there and see the people known as, say, the Democratic Party and so forth, you'll begin to sit there and see them pushing the concept more so of abortion, 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 and the concept of saying, quote, a woman's right. A girl's right is to grow up to become a wife. And that is what, in many cases, is not promoted. So in that aspect, I definitely say that that's off. You understand? Now, when they start talking, as we were going to talk in part about Project 2025, making things mandatory as opposed to quote unquote suggestive if one wants to do so, that is where a distinction comes into play. Why then will I say that the best candidate would be Kamala is because her stance, which I do disagree with, is not being made into a definite decision for people. People choose to abort, which we are not condoning. Whereas in the case with Trump and Project 2025, I cannot, while being called a teacher and have taught and still learning, think it is best interest to have a program where the Department of Education is dismantled. That's one of the things that they talk about and say Project 2025, where his name is mentioned in there over 100 times. So when he's up there saying, I don't know what, I don't know, so forth and so on, you have to know. And if you didn't know, then you should have known. And so that even further disqualifies you and perhaps a candidate if your name is all over something and you have not the slightest clue. You understand? Let's continue with that, if I may. If you could pull the slide back up.
Yeah, so I'll pull the slide back up, but I wanted to comment on that. So yeah, if you guys want to know more about Project 2025, there's a full episode on BTV that we did a few months back about Project 2025, where we broke down all of the pillars of it and all of the ramifications that it would mean for different people who work in civil service. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure you go back into BTV's history and look at the episode that we did for Project 2025. So throughout this, while Yeshia is going through what he wants to say for Project 2025, I'll probably be chiming in with some factual things that are included in basically the manifesto, because that's basically kind of what Project 2025 is. Here we go. Let me get you back up on the screen, Yeshia. Here you go.
All right, thank you for that. Now, I cannot think of a rational person who entered the presidency insulting former presidents as a good leader. As he spoke against McCain, Clinton, Obama, and others, we see no living president endorses him. Correct me if I'm wrong. No living president that we see today endorses Trump. Do you know you got many black men said to endorse Trump? Do you know, say, like on my Facebook, what made me want to get into this kind of subject and bring it out is because there are men saying themselves as Israel talking about Trump 2024. So we want to sit there and analyze something and get into that kind of matter. Next slide, please. Now, what you're seeing on the right-hand side, it says, after Calvin Mike voted in Calhoun County, Georgia in 1884, a white mob attacked and burned his home, lynching his elderly mother and his two young daughters, Emma and Lily. Now, why perhaps would these people go so hard in doing actual crimes and abominations if voting whatsoever meant nothing whatsoever? What were they trying to prevent in certain cases in that particular matter? Why then will I say that the best candidate would be, right, I wanted to reread the last part. Sorry, that's why I put it there again. My man is, we see no living president endorses him. The person who was with him, his VP, spoke against him in the past. So you have what they call Trump and Vance. Vance spoke against Trump in the past. But now to sit there and get some kind of clout, you're going to sit there and then just try to say, oh, well, that was then and I see it different now. It's a power grab, brothers and sisters. And so it is not genuine in many cases. And so in looking in that manner, you know that all of them are politicians. But what happens, if I may say, once it comes down with us as quote unquote black people, We already have a distrust before the person can even put his or her own work in. I remember sharing things saying, wow, at one point, Virginia had a black governor. Yeah, but is he such and such? You don't even know the man's name. You didn't even bother to look up if the people of Virginia had respect for him before you sat there and put that energy out there. And these are the kind of things that sat there and makes me want to sit there and talk about this kind of subject. You understand? We as the people already down the concept of seeing us in any kind of power or anyone looking like us in any kind of power because we don't think that we should sit there and have it. How can we sit there and look at that in the scriptures, if we will? In the scriptures, when Israel was in captivity in Egypt, there were two Israelites fighting, as it says, two Hebrew men were struggling with each other. And the prophet Moses went to his brother and said, wherefore doest thou this evil against thy brother? And the response was, are you looking to kill me like you killed an Egyptian? That's what you call today's terminology, straight cooning. I'm going to sit there and be against my own people, and because I'm an N-word, I'm low budget mentally, I'm a grasshopper in my own sight. I dare not sit there and think of anything to be greater of myself. How dare I sit there and think of anything greater of myself? That's the kind of mentality that the man had in the book of Exodus, and that's the kind of mentality that some of our people have today. So let's continue with the next slide, please. Now, Heather Lofthouse and what I surmise. This, I'm going there. White woman says Trump, who said one will pick the white guy, speaking in South Carolina. Did you know he said that this year? If you had a choice between the black and the white guy, you're going to pick the white guy. This is what he said, black man who don't want to sit there and perhaps think that this guy is not the best candidate, quote unquote. He said that recently, right? Does not have, quote, the balls to go on MSNBC. Mentioned the meeting of black journalists where he could not handle such, for those who did sit there and see that interview. The people who support Trump are, I'm going there, no offense intended to anyone, black women who do not like black men, black women who swirl, date white men, black women who are upset they are not in a position of Harris, black men who hate black women, black men who hate black men, black people who hate black freedom, or who hate freedom for us as a people. Why do I say that? Am I saying that, quote, Harris or Kamala is the answer to us as a people? Absolutely not. But many of our ancestors, immediate from the grandparents' era, would sit there and state, well, if you had to, quote, choose, quote unquote, the lesser two evils, which one will it be? Will it be a person who can sit there and in Pennsylvania talks about golf men in the size of his phallus, as he did recently, sitting up there dancing for 39 minutes to YMCA, not realizing, brothers and sisters, that YMCA was made by the village people promoting homosexuality. So black men who sit there and want to sit there and think about this guy being a good person, you may want to check your, I hate to have to say it, your masa. The only reason why people would sit there, and I'm speaking in regards with males of color that they seem to have been talking about recently, saying that, oh, they are, quote, not siding with, quote, what Obama or what Harris is saying, are men who sit there and do not see themselves in a certain kind of position. You forgot this guy said that he can be on Fifth Avenue in New York City, that is, right? And shoot somebody and people still love him. Black man, you don't have that right. You can't go on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and get away with it like that. How would you be if you had 34 indictments and found guilty? Where would you be, brother? So we have to sit back and think when we start as, quote, black males sitting up there talking about Trump 2024, you and him are not on the same plane in this society. Now let's look. Haiti was the first free black people in the Western Hemisphere. So to say they are, quote, eating the pets, these blacks who love Trump are not considering that he would say that the classmate from the 4th grade who spoke Creole, because in the black community, certainly I know in New York, you had so-called Jamaicans, so-called Trinidadians, so-called Haitians, so-called African-Americans, all in the same classroom. So he's talking about your classmate that happens to now be in Ohio that he said was eating the pets. And then when people sit there and come from Springfield, Ohio, saying that is incorrect, it's like, well, we still have to check it out. He's not going to sit there and recant on what he stated and say, I stand to be corrected. Israel, we know in the book of Zephaniah, it said the wicked know no shame. So, of course, he's going to sit there and stand by his lie. So we have to sit back and think. And I didn't want to embarrass the man by taking a screenshot and putting it up there to about 2024. Absolutely not, brothers and sisters. And we're going to show why we're saying that for edification purposes. All right? Now, let me continue in this. Haitians do not eat cats and dogs. Some sadly eat pigs or pork, but that can change, like many other of our people do. Kamala, a child of interracial union, can jump from Black and East Indian and not be wrong. Now, when people say Kamala ain't Black, she's mixed. Her father is from the island of Jamaica and her mother is East Indian. So she can, correct me if I'm wrong, jump between race and race if she wants to. So when he was on there with the Black journalists, for those who are familiar with it, saying, well, you know, looking at it like that, he was saying she was Indian, and then all of a sudden she's saying she's Black. Does this guy not know that two people of two different nationalities or ethnicities can make a child? Janet Jackson went interracial and got a child, a settlement, and a form of marriage. So if she says Kamala isn't Black, well, then by default, neither is her son. And this is not to snap on children. I have interracial people come out of interracial relationships in my family. So I'm not trying to sit there and slander or anything like that. Nor do I think that's how light-skinned people came about. That's a whole other subject. But this is something that we scared to sit there and bring out. Now, let's go on to the next part, and I got to ask you to excuse the language. Thank you. Janet and a dude who's not Black, whom she had a son with. I had a friend of mine make me that. And I have to ask why Rita excuse the language. Because she recently was going around saying Kamala isn't Black. Well, bitch, neither is your son. You had a child from a man that you claim, and ain't gonna go but so far with her business, right? Who is by default interracial. Kamala is from interracial. She's mixed as Janet Jackson's child is. But how then, doing that, can you sit there as a said Black woman after you swirled and then sit there, turn around and sit there and say, well, you know, Janet, Kamala's part of me ain't Black. You don't have the right to say that when you cross that line because you help bring another person who's mixed into this earth. So, as Kamala's mixed, so is your child. See, we have to sit back and think. Why would somebody who's done something like that, all of a sudden, I need fame and popularity? Correct me if I'm wrong. If it was Justin Timberlake at the Super Bowl doing the thing and her breast came out, people don't forgot about that. And this, again, is not to shame nobody. But what image was being portrayed? I remember as a child living in Brooklyn, and I personally did like the Cosby Show. A Black doctor, a Black lawyer, and children that come from them. Many of our brothers are saying that show is fake. Yo, that quote, that shit ain't real. So what is real, we have to ask. Is it Rock going against the drug dealer? Is that what we need to see? Like shows like South Central? Movies like South Central? Boys in the Hood, Juice, Menace to Society? Is that what must be, quote, real in that particular case? Because many of our people, believe it or not, shun the image of the Cosby Show. Saying things like, oh, well, I've never seen, quote, Claire inside of a case. I did, being a fan of it. So we have to begin to sit back and think, why will we want to sit there and push that kind of matter? Let's move on to the next part, please, with the time allotted. Thank you. Time Magazine, we're going to get our references out for edification purposes. Subscribe to the channel. Taylor B, subscribe to the channel. Moreh Yeshia History Lessons. This is how we do. We're not going to talk in emotion. We're not going to talk out of feeling. We're not going to talk out of thoughts. We're going to show you why we say what we're saying. President Trump made a bit of a historical blunder during his 4th of July Salute to America speech Thursday when he said that the Continental Army took over the airports. Remember that? In 2019, they took over the airports. There were no airports during the Continental Congress before the timing of George Washington, that is. That came about
after the year 1900 with regarding the airplanes and so on. During his hour-long speech at the grounds of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., Trump stayed largely off politics. While stating something, then it was to blame, the teleprompts. You're too arrogant to sit there and say, I made a mistake itself. It's the teleprompts. It's not the teleprompt that you read, like I made a mistake in my own PowerPoint, say, that's my bad. You got to own that. No, he ain't going to own that. And the people there clapping like, yeah, they took over the airports. That shows you don't know, quote, your own country, people. Because there were no airports then. Next part. Oh, hold on. We got to stay here for a moment, please, if I can. I met with the president of the Virgin Islands. Remember that? We're going to show a map of the Virgin Islands. But let's sit there, remember this part right here when he said he met with the president of the Virgin Islands. Let's continue, family. Thank you. Put up the next slide. Thank you, sister, with that one. What are we to say? The man bankrupt a casino, a place people go, and if they win, they at times are escorted for security reasons. A place that if you get over 10,000, they give part now and part later for legal purposes. Because if you win over 10,000, you can't walk around with $10,000 legally. You got to claim that. So they'll give you a part of it and then send you another part later on. All right. The man's university went to shit. HBCU, historic black colleges and universities, are thriving. Other colleges are thriving. Obamacare in effect. He stated that he had concepts of a plan regarding health. So let me understand something. The situation with Chancellorsville, when he said that there were, quote, good people on both sides, and people did get hurt. The situation with January 6th, when people did get hurt, he sat there and said it was a day of love. Pay attention to what we're dealing with, family. So he has to sit there and ride on the health benefits that the black man Obama made while he said he has concept of a health plan. You got warriors, quote unquote, hoodlums, quote unquote, gangsters, quote unquote, soldiers, quote unquote, I can sit there and get the military against the American populace that he kept on saying and people kept pointing out. But once it comes down, family, to something like a health plan, he got to still sit there and go on Obama. What does that tell you? He has more violence in his pocket than cure. More problems to present than a cure. I have concepts. And then when they had that debate in Pennsylvania, by the way, I think it was in Philadelphia, the lady asked him, well, do you have a plan regarding health? If I'm misquoting her, let me know. Like, I have concepts of it. I'm not president yet. So that means that you're going to go into something and then have to do what regarding health? Your mind is already, I'm going to get rid of my political enemies because you're not thinking about health. Whether they say the health plan is a good one or not, you have nothing in that regard. You understand? The Affordable Care Act, correct me if I'm wrong, is a branch, they say, of the Obama care, so forth and so on. So black men and women get off of Monsters Trump's balls, which he does not have when he has to use the black man's health plan because he has no plan after he was president because he using race cannot be listed alongside the 40 plus white presidents, 12 who were slave masters, before him being a hero. See, the people who were heroes before him, say like Roosevelt, or say like before him McKinley, or say like say before him the matter with Lincoln, or say like before him the matter with Jefferson, some of them being slave masters like Jefferson was. The house on the back of the nickel is Thomas Jefferson's house in Monticello, New York, which was a slave plantation. You understand? He can't be in accordance with any of those guys. Did you know that? Let's show what we're talking about as we continue on. He did more for black people than no. I meant to finish reading that. Sorry about that, sister. He did more for black people than any other president. That's what he said, right? He was alive when Johnson helped the Negro in the medicinal world when they talk about Medicaid and all that kind of stuff that Johnson after Kennedy in the 1960s was doing, the Voting Act that Johnson put into play in 64, but Trump is going to sit there on his high horse and sit there and say that he did more for black people. No, you did not. You hang out with a couple of rappers who are Crips, who have felonies. You hang out with Kanye West, who goes from one side to the next. And this is no knock on any brother who was or is a Crip or is a rapper or is Kanye West. But we have to sit back and see what kind of people do you want to associate yourself with. You understand? And Trump, had to have heard when Grant before him nearly dissolved the KKK. Do you know the KKK in the 1800s was almost dissolved by President Grant, who was the 18th president? But again, remember, the man bankrupt a casino. Let's continue, family, so we can sit there and understand why we should not sit back and think that that is a good choice. People who spoke on Trump being unfit. Pence, Mark Milley, Jim Mattis, Matt Pottinger, your former vice president, your former joint chiefs of staff, your former defense secretary, and your former national security advisor, who are part of, quote, the Republican Party, who joined on with Harris. Now, while brothers or sisters are probably like, yo, this dude done sit there and lost his mind, I wanted to state in the beginning of this that I do not support everything that the Democrats, quote, Harris and them support. What I am saying is, though they, quote unquote, push, quote unquote, women's rights, aka abort / slay the baby in the womb, they're not saying that that's something you must do. You understand? When you sit up there and talk about, oh, women who don't have children or cat women, like what is almost your point in being there? You forgot that there's some women who can't have children called being barren. You forgot that, huh? So you're not thinking when you just full of hate. That part you missed. Somebody didn't give you that memo. Let's go on, family. Are we serious? In an attempt to appeal to black voters, former President Donald Trump says he has something in common with them. He's being treated unfairly by the criminal justice system. That, and I hate to have to say it, sometimes Caucasian males have to join themselves with black males only when the black male is shown as being wrong. The serial killers among black people, like the original 50 Cent. And then you start talking about John Wayne Gacy. You have to show or talk about black people like Frank Lucas, who helped destroy Harlem. You got to talk about Nicky Barnes, who helped destroy Harlem, in order to sit there and show a connection between our people and others at times. So when this person sits there and talks about a matter of saying, I, like black men, are being treated unjustly by the criminal justice system. That's your connection? I got indicted for nothing, for something that is nothing, Trump said, speaking over the weekend to the Black Conservative Federation's annual gala. They were doing it because it's election interference. And then I got indicted for a second time, a third time, and a fourth time. And a lot of people said that's why the black people like me, because they've been hurt so badly and discriminated against. Oh. So when can you say, like Clinton and George Bush Jr., who both apologized for slavery? Did you know George Bush Jr. and Clinton mentioned in the book that I wrote called Deuteronomy 28, History Untold to the Masses? For those interested, you can get that book online. The name of the book is called Deuteronomy 28, History Untold to the Masses on Amazon, right? I spoke about how Bush Jr. and Clinton apologized to black people for slavery. Might have been genuine, might have been disingenuous. But you are going to join on with the Negro by saying, I've been persecuted like you, Negro. That's our unity. So now these black people, like Donald and the other guy that was vying and battling for him, right? What happened? he picked his brother as vice president. The senator from South Carolina and the other guy, Donald, whoever, who was riding for him and everything like that, after Vivek Ramaswamy was told by the lady she agrees with him, but she ain't gonna vote for him because he's an Indian. Remember that? He didn't pick a black vice president. He picked his brother. His brother who spoke against him. Not the black senator, Scott, that was on YouTube. I love nobody but you. Scott didn't speak against from South Carolina Trump. Vance did, and Trump still picked his white brother who spoke against him over the black man who spoke highly for him. Are we serious is the question that we want to present to the people. Let's go on, family. Thank you for that. Associated Press bringing out our sources with the timing allotted. Washington, Associated Press, a claim from the presidential debate and how it stacks up with the facts. Trump. Donald Trump said that a 1970s racial discrimination case against his real estate business was settled without any admission of guilt, and that the case was brought against many real estate firms. That's the claim. The facts. The first claim is technically correct. The second, flatly false. Trump and his father fiercely fought a 1973 discrimination lawsuit brought by the Justice Department for the alleged refusal to rent apartments in predominantly white buildings to black tenants. So now, black man, when you start talking about Trump 2024, let's remember in 1973 what they had to deal with before some of us was even born. Our mothers and fathers would have been told to turn around. Testimony showed that the applications filed by black apartment seekers were marked with a C for colored. A settlement that ended the lawsuit did not require the Trumps to explicitly acknowledge that discrimination had occurred, but the government's description of the settlement said Trump and his father had failed to and neglected to comply with the Fair Housing Act. So now when we go over talking about I was discriminated against, dude, you and your father discriminated against black men that you want to sit there and talk to the black man's sons in 2024 saying, oh, well, you know, I'm like you. My father and I discriminated against your father, but my father's gone. I don't know what happened to your father, but I'm talking to my father's black associate sons that I'm like you. No, motherfucker, you is not. You understand? Trump is also wrong to say that the suit was brought against many real estate developers. It was specifically to buildings rented by him and his father. So again, he's going to sit there and throw the shade. It was brought against many. No, take the L and acknowledge you made a mistake, but you can't do that. Next slide. Thank you with the timing allotted. Ideals in support of Paris, a statement by Lauryn Hill. What Harris is campaigning on, not saying that she's not playing politics, but at least she's saying things like this. Affordable housing, that's good. Help for small businesses. Day Night Publications is a small business. Help young parents. My daughter is 18, becoming a parent. She's one of those kind of people. Endorsed by Goldman Sachs, the Wall Street Journal, saying that Harris strengthens Trump's weekends. Bring more capital to the U.S. Why did I put Lauryn Hill there? Remember Lauryn Hill album that said The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill coming out in 1998? In it, there's a line that Lauryn Hill said, get yours in the capitalistic system. There's a line in that album where Lauryn Hill in the 1990s said, get yours in this capitalistic system. So now we have to quote, seize the time. Black men and women from Jamaica. When did the Maroons set up shop? When the British and the Spaniards were fighting, is when many black people took to the mountains and wind up going and forming Maroon communities. Black men and women in Brazil. When did many of them become Colombos or Maroons in Brazil? Is when the Dutch and the Portuguese was fighting. Do you know that many black uprisings in the United States during slavery was what they heard because they could not read about what was happening with Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines in the place we call Haiti today? So now why do you think this man talking about, oh, they're eating cats and dogs? They're not eating cats and dogs. And for the house of Israel, brothers who want to sit there and say Trump 2020, I don't get that one. Many Israelites follow the 12-tribe chart, which I do not. But according to that chart, the Haitians are the tribe of the Levites. How can you, whether you acknowledge yourself as Israel with the chart or you acknowledge yourself as Israel without the chart that floats around, sit there and talk about as a brother in understanding Israel Trump 2024? Please put me on how. I missed that memo. But according to what we can see, like Nehemiah in the Bible, Nehemiah chapter 2 showed that he was a satrap or part of the satraps and the governors that was appointed. So why will we not utilize the strength that we can sit there and see, brothers and sisters? If our people despise something as deep and as useful as the Cosby Show, that shit is fake. A black lawyer and a black doctor. Get that bullshit out of here. So I guess your definition of real is menace to society. Or better yet, boys in the hood when the lady got the baby walking in the street because she strung out on crack. And the guy Trey had to pick up the baby and said, won't you wash up? And she's offering fellatio to him. Maybe that is real to you. Maybe that is what we want to sit there and keep on promoting. No, we have to do and change up on this. Whether you acknowledge yourself as Israel or not, have to do so. Many white people know Trump is a fool, but they feed off of his spirit. We have to know when to seize the time in the matter. We'll move on to the next slide with the timing allotted. Thank you. Serge Mamboli, in a statement made of the Congo by Trump, there is no evidence for former President Donald Trump's repeated claims that the, quote, Congo had emptied prisons to allow violent criminals to come to the U.S. border as migrants. And the governments of both the Democratic Republic of Congo and the neighboring Republic of Congo say Trump's assertions are entirely false. So when he sat there and said the people from the Congo are releasing their criminals over into the United States, the people in the Congo are saying that's not the case. And that's the gentleman there that you see on the right-hand side who spoke about that. Do you think, black man, that this guy is going to talk against politicians from other countries and not sit there and talk against black people inside the United States? Do you think, Hispanic man, that he's going to sit there and talk about they coming with MS-13 from Mexico and from Venezuela, and he's not going to sit there and talk against you, my Boricua brother, my Dominicano brother? You think he's your friend? No. He talks against Hispanic leaders in other continents. He talks against black leaders in other continents. He is not your buddy. Next part, let's move on, family. I will follow the laws of the federal government of the country, says Kamala Harris. This is smart in that she does not care to be impeached. We cannot say everything at home as children, nor at a job, career, place as adults. The lips of the wise know it's susceptible. Proverbs 10:32. So, brothers and sisters, what do we want to point out in this with the timing allotted? What are you going to do that's different than Joe Biden? What are you going to do different? That's Trump. You don't go in and say everything and lay all your artillery out. Even though with that on KamalaHarris.com, she has the 80-page stuff, talk about her plans and so forth and so on. Let's go on to the next part, family. Thank you. The vice president has limited powers. Thus, in case like Cheney and Bush Jr., it looked odd that Cheney was doing what he was doing and having much to say. Remember that? Everyone say, oh, Kamala just sits there and laughs. She just laughs. She doesn't say nothing. She's playing her vice president role wisely. Cheney, who actually supports Harris, basically people were saying that who's the president? Is it Bush or is it Dick Cheney? Because he's always talking. She played her role very wisely. Just, I'm here. Now you see what position she is there. So people saying that the polls are showing whatever about being tired and so forth and so on. Biden left from being a nominee to run for the presidency this year in July of this year. This is now October. So from July, when Harris took over to be a nominee for president, to now, for her to be tied with Trump, who's already was president X amount of years ago, said something to her status. She rose up in status that quick. Now, some people I know say she did X, Y, and Z to get the position she got. I have no evidence of that. You understand? I'm talking about people saying she was doing sexual things in order to get where she is. I don't know about that. What I do know, Republicans and Democrats all, in many cases, go and do things when they want to go on their retreats, which I'm not going to get too far into. So again, I'm not up here saying that anybody should vote for anybody. That's not what my stance is. The spirit that makes me want to go into this kind of subject is because you got black men online sitting up there talking about Trump 2024. No, that's not the better candidate, bro. All right, so let's look. To ask Kamala or any VP, vice president, what changes he/she would make as president is like asking an employee what change he or she would make if he or she becomes manager. If a person is just a, quote, no disrespect intended by the term, regular employee becomes a manager, what changes are you going to make? You don't ask that to the person becoming manager, do you? You sit there and you see what one is coming with. Like she said on the Fox interview with the guy who tried to sit there and bring up a fourth thing about Trump's statement, who she had to sit there and squash. For those who saw the Fox interview with her, right? I'm coming in with a new set of thoughts. I'm coming in with a new set of ideas. Can we, knowing as, say, ourselves as Israel, can we say that Nehemiah, being a politician in the time in Nehemiah chapter 2 in the scriptures, was a coon? Was Joseph entering to Pharaoh being a coon? You had Israelites from Genesis all the way into Nehemiah that when other nations had power, Israelites rose to certain kind of status. But if you think something like the Cosby Show is bullshit, we'll never sit there and get to that kind of mentality because you can't sit there and think a black man could be an obstetrician and a black woman be a lawyer in the same house. It must be the kind of houses that we're used to seeing, where mommy's mommy and daddy. It must be the kind of houses that we're used to sitting up there seeing, where the uncle takes the place of the father. We talking real in this particular matter, and I say this in no offense. All right? Only a fool who sees himself herself being promoted speaks on such things. Also, only a fool is promoted and continues the exact same policies of his or her predecessor. So let's continue with the same, with the next slide, please. Trump to build a wall on the border of New Mexico, 2019. Remember he said that? And we're going to build a wall around New Mexico. You know, he said that, talking about south of Colorado, not knowing, considering New Mexico becoming a state, correct me if I'm wrong, in the year 1912. That is part of the United States. The governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, spoke on this, saying that the children in kindergarten are taught general geography. Governor of New Mexico in 2019 was first. Susana Martinez, a Republican, then Michelle Grisham, a Democrat. When he was going around talking about New Mexico, this and that, it was either one of those two ladies that was the governor of New Mexico. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Mexico he probably was thinking about does not have a governor but a president. And the president of Mexico said, end quote, we're not building a wall. And we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. Excuse my language to cite the man correctly. We ain't paid for no fucking wall. That's what he said. And then the new president after that of Mexico said, yeah, you could build a wall as long as you give us back Texas. See, you got to understand what happened on how California and Texas was part of what we call Mexico today until the 1840s. You got to understand history to understand where the president of Mexico was coming saying, yeah, we build a wall as soon as you give us back Texas. That takes you all the way back to the matter of the 1800s, as pointed out. Next part, please. Trump spoke to the president of the Virgin Islands. Remember we spoke about that? He said that. I spoke to the president of the Virgin Islands, Dodo. The Virgin Islands is St. Croix, St. John, and St. Thomas. You're the president, Dodo, of the place where you said you spoke. Who were you speaking to? You didn't know what you was the president of, which means that you did not know what you was presiding over. How can you be trusted if you don't know what you're presiding over? When you got into office the first time, and hopefully not a second time to come, you being a big baby because Congress wasn't riding and rocking with you. I'm going to shut the government down. Government shutdown was for over a month. Brothers and sisters who was working with TSA and other companies were hurting during the time when Trump first got in. Did you know that? So we have to begin to see, okay, you don't feel Kamala does not mean that you must feel this fool who does not know what he was presiding over. You did not know you were the president of the Virgin Islands. You did not know the geography of Colorado, New Mexico. I rest my case. Y'all have a good night. Hopefully everybody be well.
Moreh, come back on the screen so we can close out. Here, let me get us back up here evenly. So I want to, I want to make sure that people know, do what you need to do for you, what's best for you and your family at the end of the day. The one thing that I like to tell our people, when we have these election years, look at history. Look at the history of the elections. Look at the history of the candidates. Look at what their policies are. For far too long, Black Americans have experienced benign neglect in the political arena. There is such a thing that happens. Different code words are used, such as minorities and different things like that, to basically shut Black Americans out of different resources and to keep us as a permanent underclass in the society. I say that to say, it's a shame that we have to look at this and say it's the lesser of two evils, but it is. I would posit to say, let's pull our resources together as a Black community and let's force one of those candidates to adhere to the things that we need them to adhere to for our community. Because for far too long, throughout history of this country, Black Americans have received nothing politically from this country. We've not received reparations for the free slave labor, for the years of Jim Crowism, for the lynching years, up till now, to still being discriminated against, immigrants being able to even immigrate to this country because of the civil rights bill that we put forth, immigrate here and are made, those resources are made available to those people, and we are blocked out of those resources. We are a permanent underclass in the society. So I say that to say, and you just heard Yeshia give his thoughts and his opinions. Now this is Taylor B's thoughts and opinions. Pull your resources together as a community, make our own political party and demand change. I had a young lady on my show over the summer named Brooke Sinclair. They're putting together a super PAC for Black Americans. This is what we need. You need a super PAC. You need to get politically smart. You need to strategize. You need to organize, and you need to make demands for the things that we need and that we demand as a community. And these things should be tangible things, not just all of this, false things that they tell you. And I'll even go back to Yeshia's slide where he was talking about what Kamala is saying she's promising now. She had a video stating she wasn't going to do anything specifically for Black people, but they did something specifically for Asian Americans. So why can't Black Americans specifically get something? And we were the ones that specifically built this country on free labor. So, I say that to say I don't endorse neither one of these candidates. I also don't subscribe to the fact that you have to vote. You have to vote. No, you don't. No, you don't have to vote. You do what you need to do for yourself, for your family. It's not disrespectful to your ancestors if you don't vote. Our ancestors fought for the right for us to vote, for us to make meaningful change in our community. They didn't fight for the right for us to vote just to go throw a vote away to give it to somebody that's not going to do anything, that's going to continue to have benign neglect on the issues that we bring forth. So I know with some of the recent things that are going on with the election, Kamala's trying to change her stance and she's trying to incorporate things, with some Black loans and Black small business. I would like to see it, to believe it. I just really don't think she's going to do anything for Black Americans. Everything that I've heard her say is for minorities. And generally, anything that's being done for everyone, Black Americans are still at the bottom and we're still not getting anything from it. So that's my stance on it. I don't agree with neither one of them. I don't subscribe to neither one of them. And I'll go a step further. And we talking about Black leaders. And I just want to read this real quick. Where are the Black leaders? And this is from Dr. Claude Anderson's book. If you guys don't know who Dr. Claude Anderson is, you need to go look him up, get his Powernomics series, his book series, and get all of his books. Look at some of his lectures. On point, like no tomorrow, with how this Black community has been handled by this country, how we've handled ourselves, how we've interacted with each other in a negative way. How we can even go back and look at the Jim Crow era and say, yeah, it was terrible. We were discriminated against. It was this, it was that. But guess what else we were doing during that era? We were a community with each other. We were supporting each other because we had to. We didn't have a choice. We didn't have to do it. And then we were building our Black towns. Look at our Black Wall Street and several other Black towns. Lots of them in Georgia, Mississippi, different cities around the South and the North. Okay. A lot of Black towns that got destroyed with integration. It got destroyed because when the so-called dominant society saw that the wealth that we could build within our own Black town, they didn't like that, because we are supposed to be the permanent underclass in this society. So what I'm going to tell you is do what you need to do, but I don't subscribe to either one of them, because until I hear somebody come out their mouth and say, I'm going to specifically put this forth for the Black American community, I'm not voting for neither one of them. So that's me. Everybody got to do what they got to do. If I do vote, because I'm really not that decided yet, I don't know who I'm gonna vote for. But right now, the way I feel, I'm not voting for neither one of them. I don't like her and I don't like him. And I don't think that we as American citizens should have to subscribe to choosing the lesser of two evils. This is a democracy. So if we don't want either one of them two evils, it's time for the American people to stand up so we can make that board game fall over, because we're the backs of this whole society. The working class, we keep this society going. Without us, they have nothing. So that's why they want to also keep us stupid and ignorant to a lot of the things that they're doing also. So the minute that we stand up, and I say this for everybody, but more specifically for my Black American community, when we get tired and we stand up, that's when it'll be enough, because until then, it's like we're a glut for punishment. We continue it. We want it. We love it. We love the way it feels. We love to be ignored. We love the benign neglect that we get. We love being a permanent underclass. Let me tell you what we do. This is what we do. And brother, I appreciate everything that you said. You know what I'm saying? But but this is the facts. This is the facts of the society. We have been ignored on purpose. Black Americans carry the moral and the civil rights banner for all people, while most people look out for themselves and ignore the needs of Black Americans. So that's what happens politically. It happens across all the other 11 areas of activity. And politics is no different. So until we decide that that's enough, this is what's going to continue to happen. And then you guys can continue to play this game and pick lessers of two evils and do all this kind of stuff. None of it's going to work. And I want to also say this to say, go ahead and vote who you think that you should vote for in. Don't be surprised when they get in there and they ignore your Black ass, because they've been ignoring you. So they're not going to get in there now and today and say, okay, this is the day that we're going to get in here and do something for Black Americans. It's not going to be that. So do what you got to do. Like I said, I want everybody to do what they think is best for themselves. Use your critical thinking skills. Stop being emotional and stop always thinking about partying and entertainers and celebrity worship, because that's another thing that both sides of them do. The right just does it a little more. It's a little more raw and ignorant the way they do it, because it really makes us look coonish on that end. But the other end ain't no better. All it is a bunch of celebrities who basically are in place. They're double agents, you guys. Stop celebrity worshiping. These celebrities are double agents. If they wanted to make this community better, they would pull their resources together with this community to do so, because they have the resources. And I'm not saying that people who make it need to come back and do all of this stuff for everybody else, but you got to start somewhere. And if we're not worried about our own self-interest as a group, then what are we talking about here? Like he said, what are we talking about here? So to me, all of this celebrity worship, those people are double agents. They're not, there's no such thing as a Black leader. We have to be leaders of ourselves and then come together as a community so we can lead ourselves out of the permanent underclass in this society. So that's all I really have to say. I wanted to make sure that I was able to add on to that and give what my opinion is, because, you know, while I respect the Moreh's opinion, we don't exactly have the same opinion. So I wanted to sure that my opinion's clear and just let you guys know this is rough for us out here and it ain't getting no better. We're in the year 2024. Next year, we're going into the year 2025. It's a non-universal year. It's a year of transformations, ending of a cycle. Okay. Things are going to start changing around this society. In 5 years from 2025, they're looking to make the first smart cities in this country. There's already smart cities overseas. They use social credit scores. Where do you think Black Americans are going to stand with that in 5 years if we don't do something right now to pick our community up? So the choice is yours. You can either continue to be this permanent underclass, and when all the smart cities start and they start going eons past where we can even fathom, because all we're worried about is partying, celebrities, and all this other crap, I'm just letting you know it's coming. So you need to either prepare now or just, you know, stay where you are. You know, if you don't want to evolve, then some people, it ain't meant for everybody. Everybody's not going to go. Okay. But this is to the real Black Americans that care about our culture, our heritage, our everything, our history, everything that we've built, our sweat, our blood, our tears in this country. If you care about that and you don't want to be the permanent underclass, then you need to take heed to this stuff that we're telling you. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm going to hop off of my soapbox. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to BTV Live tonight. I hope you learned something. You know, I hope that it just got you thinking, if nothing else. One of my main thing is to think. Stop letting the computer think for you. Stop letting the computer fix your spell check errors. Go look up the word. Start thinking for yourself again. Start writing, not typing. Start writing. So you can start using your critical thinking skills and getting your brain working. Because trust me, you're going to need those brain cells. You're going to need to plan and strategize for this future that this country's headed into. So the choice is ours. It's time for us to stand up, Black America. We've been the underclass long enough. It's time for us to stand up. So with that, I'm going to close. Yeshia, do you have any closing remarks before we close the show out?
Yes, I do, in due respect. I want to talk about it from two angles and close out in this particular matter. If I may. In saying the society doesn't care about us, the job don't give a fuck. But we go to them. We hope to get raises with them. We use it to sit there and pay the bills. Like this thing here, the phone. So what I was attempting to convey in closing out is we use it for a better means. We don't want to sit there and cut our nose off to spite our face. We can sit there and utilize it for a purpose. In the movie Amistad, they used the damn weapons that the slave masters on the slave ship had to get there and kill them. The Maroons in Jamaica used the guns to go against the British. They didn't come from Ghana with the guns with them already. They used it already. So my point in presenting this is to the dumbass Negroes who was up there on the Facebook, who motivated me to get in this Ruach or spirit to talk about it, excuse my language in part, was Trump 2024. Nah, B. This nigga said his daughter got a nice ass. Yo. Nah, they ain't no discussion on that, man. Y'all have a good night. I'm out.
All right.
Peace. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Yeshia. Thank you so much, Moreh. Thank you. He's out. I'm going to get him off the screen. So I just want to make sure you guys know, everything that I said, I mean it. I care about our community. I care about us, elevating our consciousness, elevating our physical space, elevating the conditions where we live, elevating the way that we interact with each other. Okay. Talking to each other with more respect, empowering each other, acting, we need to maybe act like it's still Jim Crow again. Act like we're all we got, because really we are all we got. So all of this other stuff that you see going around, because sometimes what you see isn't always what's real. Okay. So make sure that what you're dealing with is real in front of you. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people want to say we have this freedom and we have that freedom, but behind the curtains, there's different benign neglect policies that are going on. And it's like everybody's in on it except you. So everybody's in on the secret except us. Okay. But the cat's out of the bag. Is no longer a secret. It's time for us to stand up and do what we need to do as a society. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to close the show out. And I'm going to present this on the screen while I go ahead and close the show out. Because if you ask me, if none of the candidates are talking about any of this, then it's nothing that I really want to hear from them. So with that being said, make sure you tune into us next Tuesday night live, same time, same place. Peace.